Michigan State basketball is back in our lives, and they are in the win column. 73-55, no sweat win over Northern Arizona. We talk about that game before welcoming Stephen Brooks of 24/7 Sports on to, hey, pick his brain about what he heard at Mel Tucker's press conference. And yeah, we're still not done talking about Saturday's big win over Illinois. And then, does he have any Dante Moore insight? Let's find out.
Are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
My Spartan friends and Spartan family, it is a joyous day on this Monday night, maybe Tuesday when you're listening. Nonetheless, one of the most exciting yet anxious-filled times for State fans. It's officially that month when Michigan State basketball and football overlap. Let's just soak it all in while we can, and it's pretty easy to soak it in when your football team has a top 25 road win on Saturday, and then the basketball team chases it with a drama-free win at Breslin Center to kick off the year against Northern Arizona. We will get to that in a hot second, but first, hey, please rate, review, and subscribe to this here show. It's called Locked On Spartans. I'm your host, Matt Sheehan, and we do this 5 days a week here in the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking podcast, we're talking YouTube, any way you digest this media. Hey, thanks for giving us a shot. Now, let's get into the game here a little bit. We're going to spend one segment on this, but hey, on tomorrow's show, we're going to do a full Michigan State basketball kind of season preview and also game preview for Saturday because we're talking with Andy Patton of Locked On College Basketball, but also Locked On Zags. He does both, so we're going to get to know about Friday's game and just the whole season in general tomorrow. But let's spend the next few minutes on this massive opening night win at Breslin Center. Like I said, 73-55, and if you did not pay the $10 to watch this game on Big Ten Network Plus, you didn't really miss much. And no, you're not a fake fan for not paying that $10 because, look, this was never going to be a drama-filled game, but we do have some good takeaways. If you did miss this game, or even if you did watch this game, you just want a little refresher of what happened, Michigan State put Northern Arizona away pretty early. It actually took Northern Arizona 12 minutes to even get into double figures this game. The Lumberjacks started 0 from 11 from three-point land, and the Spartans were led by Joey Hauser, 18 points. Pierre Brooks, the only other Spartan in double figures with 14 points. And yes, Jaden Akins, off that foot surgery, did play today. He was limited to, as was said before the game, we're going to try, 10, 12, or 15 minutes, and that was just about the window that he got, and he made the most of it. You know, he only played for a few minutes in the first half, but he went into the locker room at halftime with the most shots taken by a Spartan, so he did not skip a beat in being aggressive, which is what we like to see. He didn't have a sterling stat line at the end of the game. We're looking at 3 of 10 shooting, 0 of 3 from three-point land, but I'm not going to get on his case for his first game action, especially off a foot injury. So there you have it. Akins is back. Probably expect him to play this Friday, and knock on wood, the rest of the season too. So yeah, that was a big storyline going into today. There are, of course, a lot of other storylines as well, and well, let's just get into it right here. The first one is AJ Hoggard. And it is no question at all that this is going to be AJ Hoggard's team. And hey, we kind of saw what it can be with him and what it can be without him on Monday night. And yes, again, we do have to pump the brakes and remind ourselves that this is just a middling Big Sky Conference team that Michigan State did play. But there's an interesting moment in the first half. AJ Hoggard got himself in early foul trouble, had to leave the game with 12 minutes left in the first half. And in those final 12 minutes, the Lumberjacks and Spartans rode out the end of the first half with a 16-16 tie. That's right. Oh, man, things were looking a little rocky without AJ Hoggard. I say that half sarcastically, half not, because it is clear that he does have an impact on the game. You know, whether it is, obviously, your starting point guard, the guy that's stirring this whole drink of the offense, but also, too, No one else on the offense gets to the rim with the ball better than AJ Hoggard. So that also changes the look that the defense sees as well. And when he was back in the game to start the second half, 2 buckets, 2 slashing layups, and then a nice assist instantly in the second half. So look, when AJ was in the game on Monday night, he was fine. We've seen a lot better from AJ Hoggard. We've also seen a lot worse. I would say it was the epitome of fine, but yes, a little too wound up in this game. He did have 2 charges, but I'm never going to beat a guy up for being too ramped up to start the season. Would rather have him be limited in minutes because he's just getting too after it to start the year instead of just being a ghost in the corner and no one even notices he's there. So yeah, AJ Hoggard made his presence felt, and also, well, you see what could happen when he's not there. So let's just try to tone down the fouls a little bit next time around, Mr. Hoggard. Look, another big game too, and another nice takeaway that we saw, Joey Hauser. And everyone remembers the Joey Hauser from last year for 2 very different reasons. One, the Davidson game, where he all but single-handedly won that NCAA tournament game for Michigan State with his 27 points. And the second reason that he was also remembered from last year is, well, all the other games. He was very up and down. We're going to put emphasis on the down there, especially to start the year last season. When he got into December, January 2, it was like, oh boy, this is not going well for Joey Hauser. This experiment is not working. But you saw upticks at the end of last year, and look, no uptick was stronger than the game against Davidson. So now you're starting to wonder, which Joey Hauser are we going to see this year? And I know that this is an incredibly small sample size. It was 1 game. It was against Northern Arizona, but shots were falling. 4 from 8 from 3-point land, led the team with 18 points. So yes, if not for nothing else, good for Joey Hauser to get the early confidence going, the early boost to hopefully thrust him into a strong start to this year, because that's a kid that could use one. That is a kid that could really use a spot where he left off last season to vault him forward into this year. And goes without saying that us Spartan fans could really use that as well. I also love what I saw from Pierre Brooks as well. And I joked about this, talking with people during the game, that it's as if Pierre Brooks and his scholarship is contingent on shooting once per minute that he plays. This is a fearless kid, a man that is a certified bucket getter, and he knows he is as well. He was the only other Spartan besides Joey Hauser with 14 points, and that was thanks to him coming off the bench and starting 4 of 5 from 3-point land. He did end 4 of 7 from 3-point land, but hey, like those early shots were going. He was starting to feel himself. He had the heat stroke going. So yes, Pierre Brooks, very exciting bench player. Now, okay, let's also say this too, but that's not going to happen every single night. But at least you know that you have a player where you can have a microwave performance like that coming off the bench. It's not like MSU was ever in danger tonight, but with these games, with these grimy Big Ten games that are going to be popping up later this year, Pierre Brooks mentally and tonight physically looked up to the task. So love what we saw from the sophomore in Pierre Brooks. And also too, I just love the whole makeup of this team. This isn't like an X's and O's thing or anything like that. This is just, I love the way this team is structured, right? Like you have your old experienced players in AJ Hoggard, Malik Hall, the verbal guys. And we haven't seen Malik Hall be all too verbal in his career so far, but he was tonight. He was verbal to both teams, actually. Later in the game, he was coaching up Tyson Walker. It was as if it was as if Tom Izzo was out there coaching the team at times just through Malik Hall's body, but also Malik Hall verbal to Northern Arizona as well. And I say what you want about taunting or, John back and forth. I like it, especially from a kid in Malik Hall who has to be a vocal leader of this team. And also, kind of timid at times in the past. So yeah, I love that dog in him. We got to get some dogs in some people this year. How you like that for some analysis? Where are my dogs at right there? So again, you have older guys too, like Tyson Walker, Monty Sissoko experience as well. And then just the young, exciting talent, Jaden Akins, Jackson Kohler had some moments. Trayvon Holloman. And, let's just get right into the freshman report here really quick. Jackson Kohler, some good flashes in the second half. This game was actually very reminiscent of his exhibition against Grand Valley. Kind of first half. He did get exposed in the double team. 2 turnovers when the Lumberjacks collapsed on him, but freshman mistakes, I'm sure those will be buffed out over time, hopefully sooner than later. But yeah, he got a good amount of run today, showed some really good offensive traits, especially in the second half. And another kid that I'm already like in love with. Like I would just love to be the president of this kid's fan club, Trayvon Holloman. And no, I'm not just a fan of his because he also wears long sleeves when he plays basketball, like myself, although he does it at a exponentially better job than I do. He is a defensive dog on the perimeter. Stands at 6'2", but I swear that wingspan looks like it's 8'2". He just swallows people on the perimeter and did so too, to the tune of 2 steals in the first half. I don't think this is a kid that's going to be shooting the ball a lot, although we did see that nice curling layup that he had through traffic in the second half. So, yeah, Trayvon Holloman, I'm excited for his prospect in the future. Yes, I don't think he's going to get a ton of minutes, especially behind Hoggard, especially behind Tyson Walker. But, hey, we're looking pretty good there. Carson Cooper only got a few minutes in the first half, made a free throw. Going to be honest, that's one more free throw I thought we'd see him make the entire season. So there you go. But no, nothing but good things to say about today's game. What was it? A perfect game all around? Did they win by 50? No, but like it was as good of a game as you could hope for. And now you look forward to Friday, 6:30 on the aircraft carrier. Going to be a certified hoot and a half. We're going to get into some football talk here in a hot second with our guy, Stephen Brooks. But first, one of my favorite moments of the week is presented by Nissan. They do the Thrilling Moments segment. This week's thrilling moment in college football is brought to you by Nissan. The thrilling designs behind the new lineup from the Nissan lineup of vehicles are intended to empower drivers in vehicles as capable as the drivers themselves. And when I think of unbelievable abilities on the field for this week's thrilling moment, it has to be that game icing touchdown, Peyton Thorne to Jaden Reed. Absolutely sensational. Or really, let's shout out Cal Halliday really quick too, the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. He laid the wood on some hits. Xavier Henderson, speaking of laying wood, causing that fumble against Chase Brown. So yes, I just named a bunch of thrilling moments of the week, and they're all presented by Nissan. That's right. This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com. Also, not only did Michigan State win, but maybe you won if you took Northern Arizona plus 21. That's right. Michigan State did not cover the spread, and quite frankly, I can't think of a more sinking feeling than having Michigan State minus 21 as Steven Izzo goes to the line with a 1-and-1 shot to really ice this bet for you. But hey, get them next time. And when you do get them, betonline.net is where you should do it. Betonline.net is your #1 source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer. That's right, World Cup fever coming to you soon. And oh yeah, don't forget esports. We've got it all covered at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, well, you could find those at BetOnline as well. We're also the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So what on earth are you waiting for? Head to the website today, use your mobile device, learn more about the trends and action that is at BetOnline where the game starts. Stephen Brooks of 24/7 Sports is joining us now on the show. He is fresh out of a riveting Mondays with Mel press conference. Before we get to any of that, though, Steve, let's get a quick vibe check. Why did I just call you Steve? I've never called you Steve my entire life. But Steve, how you doing? Never in my life have I called you that. I don't know what just came over me, but regardless, how you doing?
It's good. No, see, that's what I always tell people because people always ask me, do you go by Steve or Steven? I just say whatever's natural. And that was just very natural. It just came out for you. So whatever is easiest on the speaker is what I go with because I got people that call me both. I do not care. Obviously, I'll answer to both. So that's it's a prime example of what I always say. Just whatever comes out for you is okay with me. So we're all good.
Okay, well, here we are, rocking and rolling. Vibes are high. Not a lot coming out of the press conference with Mel Tucker, but everything that, or something that all of us wanted to hear about, the 8 suspended players. Are we any closer on a timeline with those guys? And the answer was essentially there was no news, right? Is that pretty much what you got out of that? Yeah.
Yeah, he said there's no new information that he had, or at least that he was willing to share. Frankly, personally, I'm pretty surprised that we don't have anything new now, whether it's police or Big Ten or whoever, anybody with some authority or some power saying something, I mean, it does seem like we would have had something by now, but I mean, we'll get it when we get it, I guess. Honestly, like I don't know what gears are turning behind the process, but he didn't have anything for us. He did say, they'll be prepared to reintegrate guys sort of on the fly if they get some type of decision or something from somebody. If some of those, if they wanted or were willing to bring some of those suspended guys back. But he also said, you couldn't just show up Friday night and get cleared and play on Saturday, right? Like,
sure,
because these guys are not in the building, they're not in meetings, they're not at practice. So he was like, you'd have to be at least around, a little bit to jump back in. I mean, if they got back Wednesday, let's say, and could reintegrate a little bit, I'm sure that's a different story. You could probably get them in there, but like he was saying, you don't just show up Saturday after missing the whole week and get on the field. So that was basically all that we talked about in that regard today.
And I'm sorry if I missed it completely, but I didn't know it was that much of a suspension either, where it goes beyond game day. I didn't know it was like you can't even come into the facility sort of suspension. So yeah, that obviously is a very important detail in this press conference. That let's say they do get cleared Friday by whatever power is going to clear these guys. Like, that's going to going into a Rutgers game. Look, Rutgers isn't Georgia by any stretch of the imagination, but without even watching film or doing anything on them, like that would be a tough turnaround, I think.
Just to be clear, I don't think they're like fully locked out of the building, because they do still. When Mel announced the suspensions, he originally said they would still get like medical and academic support, I believe. So
got it.
There's still some things they could be in and out of that building for, but they would. He originally said, I don't know if this has changed, but I don't know why it would. Not a lot of practice, not in meetings, obviously not traveling or attending games or anything. So nothing football related, basically, other than just, if they're getting treatment for their bodies or some academic type of stuff.
There was one other note, too, from the press conference that I thought was a little interesting. And that was he was rehashing what happened late in the game on Saturday. And I hate to beat this horse into the ground, especially after a win. Should be a joyous moment for state slappies like myself, but kind of alarming game management at the end there. He tried to justify it, though, saying that they were going for a touchdown. Did he make sense to you, what he was saying? Like, can you explain this better, like I'm a 5-year-old, as to why they did what they did at the end of the game, or you even lost as well?
Yeah, I think much like what was it, the Wisconsin game? Yeah, the end of regulation there.
Yeah.
I'm sure much like that. And then there's been some other times. I'm sure if they could redo it, they would do some things differently. But his main point was that we were trying to score a touchdown to end the game. Basically right there, that they thought they had an opportunity. So they didn't want to kick a field goal. And so look, you can disagree for sure. And I don't know, right. I don't know if I agree with it necessarily. At least the way they went about it, of course. The overall philosophy, I can buy that. I mean, you're the underdog on the road. They've got everything to play for. You really have much less to play for. So like, for a team in that position, I do kind of understand going for the win there, but just the way it was executed, and now it becomes a pattern, right? Like this is now becomes, anything can be a blip. When Jarrett Horst came in, had his first personal foul, you brush that off, but now people expect it. When I tweeted that he wasn't warming up out there, instantly I got 2, 3, 4 replies saying, "Well, that just saved us 15 yards." That's a reputation that he's earned now. The one time you can get away with it. And now for this Michigan State staff, though, like they're gonna have to wear that for a little bit, because I think they've earned this, these questions, I guess I should say, some discomfort, with how they're handling late game or tight clock situations and whatnot. Mel spoke sort of generally today too about just like their 4th down and 2-point philosophies and everything, and just said, it's all analytics based, which. We hear that a lot these days, and
sure,
nobody really knows what the analytics are. Where they come from. It's kind of like I'm doing my own
catch-all
research,
phrase,
you know,
right?
during the pandemic. Like, well, what research? Where are you getting your
right?
What even is out there to read? You know, it's a little similar to that because it's just like, well, analytics. You know, it's the analytics. Just don't worry about it. It's numbers.
Yeah.
It's equations. It's algorithms and whatnot. It's like, well, it's AI. You know, it's machine learning.
Yes.
But where do they come from? You know, who's actually making these? So
it's like on the cloud. You know.
Yeah. So there's, but he did. You know, he said it's all about win probability and conversion probability, you know, different probabilities, success rates. And like, if there's this fourth and this much with this much time on the clock, you know, he referenced the Washington game where there was a situation where they could have kicked a PAT and got it to, I think, 14, if I'm remembering it right, but they went for 2, didn't get it. He was saying there that his, you know, abacus was saying that if you just kick the PAT, your win probability was like marginally better. Negligible essentially, and then if you converted the 2-point, then your probability went up substantially. So that's what that was about. So he went a little more in depth on just sort of big picture, not really specific to that finish. But like I said, I think that's the main takeaway though, is that people are now concerned about how the staff is handling it. I think there's been a serious loss of trust there, and you just can't. That's going to stick around until they prove them wrong, right? You know, so that every tight game for a while now. The rest of this year, maybe into next year, you know, people are going to be nervous in those situations, rightfully so, I think, because I don't think they have been managed the best. And for a staff that's getting paid really well, you hope that somebody could figure that out, you know, and not repeat things. But that's sort of the reputation right now. Doesn't always have to be. And, you know, we'll see if they can fix that moving forward. But it's troubling because it's like this season, like you can speak to this, but I'm sure a lot of people, like, they're happy with the win, but they've reached a point where it's kind of a throwaway year, right? But let's say they put it all together next year or in 2024 or whatever, and they're a one-loss team in Columbus trying to win the East, you know, and something like this happens and it blows up in their face. That's where people I know are probably really concerned. So it's like, let's work out the kinks now maybe and figure it out while we're a quick lane bowl bound and all of that. And then when the real stakes are on, let's hopefully get it out of our system, I think is sort of where people are at.
You nailed it. Like I talked about it in yesterday's show. I also talked about it 2 weeks ago after the Wisconsin game that this is kind of a tightrope act because it happened last year against Indiana as well. He's kind of almost threw the game away at the end of that one, but luckily you just were playing Indiana. You could get away with that. Rutgers in the first half last year, there were some clock management issues, but
that was one I remember.
Like Wisconsin and what we just saw against Illinois, that was egregiously bad. In my opinion. And right now, like, am I upset? Like, no, I'm just worried. But one day you're not going to face a team like Illinois or a bad Wisconsin team or a bad Indiana team last year. Like one of these times you are going to face an opponent that you just can't do that against, and it's going to bite you. And I just don't want to see it because I don't like being upset. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I don't like being angry over college sports. I'm trying to get better as a person and do that less in my later years. But I don't know. I can just see it happening. If like these,
that's the one silver lining, like I said, is you just got to hope that they're getting all their mistakes out now, and then when the program's actually turned the corner and they've become good again, that they've hammered it all out and they know exactly how to deal with these situations. You know, you get some mulligans in a down year like this, I guess, or you wouldn't even call them mulligans, but you know, you just sort of get it all out of your system now, refine it, and you hope that they improve when the games really matter much more. But look, I've gotten a lot of this, like. I'm sure we're going to get into it, but like that was a really impressive win. Like I know that last 2-3 minutes or whatever, last possession scarred some people, and look, rightfully so, as I said. But I mean, man, that was a really impressive win for this program. I thought, you know, it spoke to their culture. You know, to go down there, all the noise, and they've been saying block out the noise since week one. You know, if it's you're going to crush Western, you're 23-point favorites or whatever, you got to block out that noise. If it's you're going to get your head taken off by Ohio State, got to block out that noise. They're always blocking out noise. This noise this week, as you know, I mean, was freaking deafening. You know, and I don't know, I don't think they really. It was impossible to block out all of it. You know, as much as you tried or wanted or whatever, some of that was getting in there. So for these guys to rally, come up with some new stuff, play their tails off, young guys getting in there playing. Shorthanded, limited on defense, lost like 6, 7, 8 more guys mid-game with minor to less minor things. Just very, very impressive all around, I thought.
And also, like, with all this noise going on, it's not like this is going on in the midst of like a 5-2 season or a 6-1 season. You know, a season that's going pretty well. Like, No, like there's every reason in the world for morale to be down to begin with, and then you add in everything that happened last weekend off the field in the tunnel, suspensions, everything like that. Like to have the leadership and mental fortitude to come into that game on the road, weird environment, weird stadium to play in, odd elements going on with the weather too. Like that's well, and never mind. Just an interception first play of the game too. Like they had every reason to walk into that game mentally broken down, and also too when they started the game just to fold immediately, but they didn't. And there's a lot to be said about both the coaching staff, despite the last minute of the game, and the rest of the team. You know that, yeah, you got to just do anything that you can to congratulate them, tip your cap, applaud them. Me, admit that I was way wrong about the game because I didn't give them a shot. I didn't give them a shot at all that game. When did you start to realize that, like, they might be able to do this? Like, what was the moment in the game for you where it's like, Spartans are going to do it today? Like, what? That's a kickoff. Say kickoffs. Say you knew it the whole time. Come on, I'm setting
no, because I was cascading down that hill like everybody else. So I drove a rental car down there as a Kia Sportage, which is like a mini SUV type of deal.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there parked. I actually couldn't get in the stadium yet. I was a little early and I couldn't get my credential. Anyway, the wind is just rocking that car. I'm just sitting there swaying a little bit. And look, it's not the biggest car, but it's not a tiny car either. And like the trees are bending back, and like I'm just like, holy crap, these guys aren't going to be able to throw the ball at all. They're going to try to run on the #1 run defense in the country, #1 scoring defense in the country, #1 total defense in the country. They can't run on the 100, number 100 run defense. So I was like, this is going to be bad. And then the first play, they tried to get one to Daniel Barker, and they just floated it up there. It gets picked off. I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be bad. And then that probably the lower, it just kept getting lower, my confidence. So especially that the Illinois' first touchdown, where the guy's just zigging and zagging through the defense, and Amir Speed is just trying to get blocked almost. I mean, 20 yards to the end zone. It was insane. I was like, oh man, okay. So it was exactly the opposite of how I felt at the end of the game. I was like, oh, these guys are not locked in. They do not want to be here. They don't have the effort necessary to pull this off. But then the game unfolded. I don't know if there's a specific point. I mean, when they held them when Illinois went for it on 4th down on the goal line there, and they didn't give up the touchdown, I was like, okay, maybe they got a little fight here. There wasn't one big moment, I guess, for me. Like the Michigan game, like when Behringer had the bad snap to him and he went down on like the 8 or wwhatever, I was like, okay, that's the game right there. Other than that, I thought it was pretty much up for grabs up until that point. I don't have a good one for you here, to be honest. And it was still, I mean, as we saw, it still could have gone either way. And like there was that one series where they went to Jaden Reed. He touched the ball with 1 or 2 hands, grazed it, whatever, 3 different times in the end zone, didn't come down with any of them. And I was like, ooh,
yes,
that's first of all, how often do we see that? I mean, if Jaden Reed touches the leather, he's getting it most times.
Correct.
And second of all, 3 times in a row on the same possession in the end zone. I mean, that was and it just I was like, oh man, maybe they don't have it today. But I don't know, maybe the trade. I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't have
it could just be when the clocks hit zeros, because especially with how squirrely the end of the game was, it's like I started to have faith 5 minutes after the game ended, because that was nothing can happen now anymore.
Yeah,
nothing screwy can happen. Like the boys did it, and I can smile on a Saturday again.
I mean, being honest, it probably was Jaden's touchdown later on in the game late in the third quarter. Like it was that late. It wasn't early. Like I'm like, oh, they're going to control this game, and there was back and forth. Illinois threw some punches, they threw some punches, and I got to tone down that metaphor. I realize that because I use the punch and counter punch logic a lot, but this season I'm going to try to put it back in the box for the rest of the way. But yeah, it was that late, honestly, because that stadium didn't clear out, but it was a little lesser in the attendance by the end. But they got that momentum back. They woke up late in the game there, and it was still up for grabs. So, but the Jaden Reed touchdown was probably like, wow, they actually are going to do this.
Yeah, and they did, and it was great. And also, the celebration didn't just end on Saturday, as Cal Halliday was named Defensive Player of the Week. We went through a lot of players on yesterday's show who I thought had their best performance in a Spartan uniform. I named Jalen Berger was one. Aaron Brule was another one. Amir Speed, obviously not a perfect season from him, but you got as much as you could possibly ask out of him in that game on Saturday, I thought. Anyone else that I'm missing have a really good game for Michigan State, maybe the best of their Spartan career yet? Anyone that was just glaring to me.
I liked what Ben Van Sumeren did for the most part. I don't know about best ever, but I mean, coming in that game, I didn't expect him in there. I thought he was going to have a little bit longer timetable to come back. And I was talking to him afterward, and he was like, yeah, it was pretty dicey all week in terms of whether he would even be able to make it back. And so against that offense, especially in the first half, I thought he flashed quite a few times and made some good plays and run support. Aaron Brule, absolutely, as you said, is a good one. Give a shout out to Brandon Baldwin, though. How about that guy stepping in at left tackle, second career start? And like, I bet a lot of people out there had to remind themselves a couple times mid-game, like, oh yeah, that's not Horst out there. That's another guy. It's a new guy over there. And it's a good thing, obviously, if you're not noticing him a lot, especially as a younger guy. You just kind of want to, exist, not hide necessarily, but you don't want to stand out necessarily too much. And it's really hard to stand out in a positive way, for most folks. But I thought he did really well. I thought he hung in there. I didn't think it was just that either. I didn't think it was just like holding on for dear life. Just come on, Baldwin, get through this play. I didn't think it was that at all. I thought he was playing well. I thought he looked like he belonged out there. He meshed with the rest of the unit, looked like a starter, played like a starter, and held down the spot. It wasn't a weakness on that line at all, which, again, I'll tip my cap again that the line, I think, played as a unit one of their best games of the season. No doubt. When you look at the rushing production, just how they were able to stay in character, stay on schedule and whatnot for the most part. There was a couple segments where it got a little dicey. I know once Matt Carrick went out, they had some pass protection issues and gave up a little bit of pressure and whatnot. I thought Geno Vandermark had a couple decent moments in there. That still looks like a really promising guy for sort of this next generation of offensive linemen that are going to come through here. So those guys, I mean, they don't win that game without those guys playing the way they did. Absolutely. And then D-line played really well as well. I thought it was funny just watching them warm up. I mean, we all know they had, 2.5 defensive ends or whatever, available in that game. I was watching them warm up, and I was like, are they really going to put Mallory and Hunt out there on the outside? And sure enough, they did. And I don't know if you can paint it whatever way, because it's like, was that just the best of what they had left, or was it a genius coaching move that they came up with? Did they stumble into this, or did they cook this up and say, "Oh, this is going to work perfectly"? If you're Scotty Hazelton in the crew, you say, "Oh yeah, we've been thinking about this all week.
Yeah,
it was we drew it up, we mocked it up, it looked great, and sure enough, it worked." If you're on the other side, you might say, you just stumbled into the smartest thing you guys might have done all season, and just by circumstances, because they wouldn't have done that. I guarantee they wouldn't have done that if they had all their defensive ends available. I
hard to believe
that. Yeah. Of course, it makes sense on paper. You fight beef with beef and power on power and everything. It makes sense totally, and it worked, and you give them the credit. But it's just funny because I guarantee that wouldn't have been their starting front with their full complement of players. So just kind of a funny deal there. But hey, they did it. And also defensively, I thought they were probably more diverse, in a lot of things that they did than maybe any other game this year. You saw 3 safeties out there at different points with Brooks, Henderson, and Spencer, or Henderson, Spencer, and Mangum. So I think they were, and Mel Tucker talked about that a little bit after, is that they did, and Xavier Henderson, just that they have progressed defensively in terms of their understanding of things and just the depth of their scheme, that they can do more things than they were doing in September and even October.
Gotcha. And, but before you go, and actually this question might cause you to hang up, and I would totally understand.
Got my mouse over the exit button. Let's go.
I don't blame you for it, because we got a recruiting tidbit I just need to get to really quick. 24/7 Sports, your compatriot Sean Scher put a crystal ball in for 5-star DANTE Moore. Commit to Oregon right now to commit to Michigan State. You put a confidence in of 7. That caused a little bit of a seismic shift on Twitter. Sorry about that, first and foremost. Yeah. Second of all, your other coworker, Justin Sin, great friend of the program, said he is very far away from switching his crystal ball to Oregon to Michigan State. So we're at 2 ends here. I don't need you to talk for Sean or Justin. I just want to know what you think right now, because you still have a crystal ball logged in for DANTE Moore to go to Oregon. Stick to that commitment. Are you still very far away from changing a prediction like that, or is there really actually any smoke to this right now that you are hearing? Just a little quick DANTE Moore tidbit on your way out. And thanks for not hanging up too. By the way, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can still leave. Yeah, thank you for just saying what you said, because I was gonna say I can't speak for Sean. Like, that's his,
of course,
his reporting or his gut or whatever his deal with his ball, and then Justin has his deal, as he explained and where he's at. So I don't want to, speak for either of those guys. For me, though, as you said, it's a deal where I know Michigan State's going to try, and I think that's all really where we are right now.
Okay.
And they have been trying, I should say. Wasn't always the case over the summer and everything, but recently, I don't know when it sort of tried re-engaged fully, but that's basically the case. Michigan State wants to push hard for him and is going to put in a maximum effort to try to land him. Maybe where do I feel about it? Traditionally, I always say Detroit kids rarely leave the nest, and even if they do, they always come back. It seems like, and that's just from covering this, from knowing people, from observing specifically that city. It seems like, I know for a lot of people it's hard to leave home and go far away, but it seems like Detroit specifically, guys just don't leave there, and if they do, they come right back. That's one thing where I think I'd feel positive about it if I'm Michigan State, is just playing that angle. And then you hear things about NIL in Oregon and all that they have to offer. That has to be said. Right now, as we stand, I mean, with Auburn's job being open and Dan Lanning has been rumored to go over there, and Kenny Dillingham, their offensive coordinator, is a hot name across, either as a coordinator or maybe as an up-and-coming young head coach at a G5 level. So maybe there's some instability there that could open some things up. I mean, that relationship goes back far. Dante knows Mel and Jay Johnson and all those guys very, very well. He's been over there tons of times, and that even goes well, back to 2020. Right when Mel got the job, he was a guy that he made sure to know and to put on the radar and everything. Right now, I don't think it's much more than that. It's Michigan State putting him on their wish list. I don't know how much has been reciprocated. I'm sure he's listening to a degree, but at this point, it's still just sort of hopes and dreams by Michigan State, I would say. They are going to push, and we'll see what they can do. The way this offense has looked this year, I don't know what sort of your pitch would be other than just staying close to home, and maybe they can throw them some NIL inducements and whatnot. Not them, but they can present some some NIL opportunities, that might be available for a player such as him. So that's kind of my read on it right now. Is I don't think there's anything I know there's not anything too imminent, and that's just kind of the case. We kind of got to see. And he's in the middle of a bit of a playoff run right now, too, I should say. Right. So I don't know how much of this stuff he's even worried about at this time. Detroit King, I believe, is in the final 8 for the Michigan high school playoff season. So they'll be a favorite to go win it. So that's really, I think, where it stands right now. It's Michigan State is pushing that idea that they're in it and that they just really, really want him. I don't know how realistic it is or how much of it is a two-way street right now. But they definitely want him, and they're making that known.
For sure. And also, too, Cher puts this crystal ball in, and I think within 48 hours prior, Matt Ishbia's United Wholesale Mortgage is named the #1 lender in the country. So I'm thinking, did he get himself a little 5-star quarterback as a congratulation gift to himself? Okay, but all right. So nothing imminent. All right, I'll try to be mature about that then. It won't happen, but I'll try. I can promise you my veiled effort right here. So
we'll see. I mean, I think the staff still has a couple tricks up their sleeve recruiting wise. That would be the biggest,
Massive.
And like I said, I think just today, right now, I think it's mostly on the MSU wish list sort of things more than Dante's, considering a flip. I wouldn't say that yet, but I think it's more of a Michigan State really wants him, is going to put it all, put as much as they can into getting him.
We'll see. We'll see. Well, there you go. Well, hey, thanks a lot for sticking around to answer that tidbit. I know that has definitely been the talk of the town on the internet streets. So, thanks a lot for all that information and everything else that you offer to the show on a weekly basis, Steve. Steve, I did it again. Am I going to just do this for now? What am I going to do? Next week, am I just going to be all right, hey, what's up, Big Brooks? Or what's up, Big S? What's up?
That's what it's got to be now. Wow. That was great.
Wow.
I would have swore you planned that out, but on video here, I'm watching it. It was pretty natural and seamless there. That's great.
No need for about a decade, and this is the first time I've hit you with Steve, and I've done it twice already. This is just, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm going to go check myself out here really quick, see if everything's okay. But okay, well, anyway, nonetheless, Steve, thanks a lot for dropping by.
You got it, buddy. You got it, sport.
Until next time, we will be back on tomorrow's show. You guys already know this. Love you all. Go green. And I love you too, Steve. Love you too, Steve. That's